Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Today is lecture 9, function test review. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be looking at the actual test. We're going to be doing some actual questions from the test. And then at the very end, I'll be taking questions from you guys. So let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to talk about some from the first page, some from the second page, and some from the third page. So let's get to it. Now, the first type of question that you're going to see on the test is whether or not something is a function. Now, as you know, there are things called relations. There are these things called relations. We've talked about them before. There are relations, and there are two types of relations that you're going to see on the test. There are going to be relations that are functions. There are going to be relations that are functions. And then there are going to be relations that are not functions, So let's talk about the difference between the two and how they're so different. When we're talking about functions, we're going to be looking at relations where x values don't repeat. X values don't repeat. X values don't repeat. We'll look at some examples of those. And when you're looking at things that are not functions, what you'll notice about these things are that x values actually do repeat. So you're going to find out that x values actually do repeat. So if you're in a situation where you see where x values are repeating themselves a lot, that means that it's not a function. But if you're looking at a relation where x values don't repeat, then that is probably going to be a function. So let's take a look at the first one. We want to figure out which one is not a function. Not a function. And it gives us several choices. The first one is A. We're going to be looking at 2, 3, negative 4, 7, 3, negative 2, and negative 1, 9. So looking at answer choice A, we want to determine whether it's a function or whether it's not a function. Do the x values repeat? That's the question you're going to ask yourself. Do the x values actually repeat themselves? And if you look at the x values, they're always going to be the first numbers that you see. Because when you have an ordered pair, we always put the x value first and the y value second. So looking at these x values, I'm going to underline them in red. The x values never repeat, so this one actually is a function. So we're not going to be using answer choice A. But if you look at answer choice B, we get a totally different picture. Let's look at answer choice B. For B, we have the ordered pairs 4, 6. We have the ordered pair 6, 2. We have the ordered pair negative 3, 8. And we have negative 3, 1. So what I'm going to do with all these ordered pairs is I'm going to underline the x values. I'm going to underline the x values. So for the first ordered pair, we have 4. For the second ordered pair, we have 6. And then we have negative 3 and negative 3. Do you notice how the negative 3 repeats itself? Since the x value repeats itself, this one is not a function. So answer choice B is going to be our answer for this one. Okay? So we're trying to determine whether or not something is a function. If the x values repeat themselves, then they're not going to be functions. But if you find out that the x values don't repeat themselves, then they're going to be functions. Okay? Now let's check out number 4. Number 4 is the next one that I wanted to do, because this one is a great example of what we call the vertical line test. The vertical line test. So for number 4, we're going to be determining which one is not a function. Not a function. So 3 of these are going to be functions. 1 is not going to be a function. So A is going to be a line. A is just going to be a line. B is going to be a parabola. It's a downward facing parabola. That just means it's a U shape. Answer choice C is going to be a sideways absolute value. So it's going to look like this. And then answer choice D is going to be a downward facing absolute value. So it's going to have that V shape, just like the last one did. So what we're going to do with these answer choices is we're going to subject them all to the vertical line test. The vertical line test. So for every single answer choice we have, I'm going to draw vertical lines. Well, I'm going to draw a vertical line right here, right here, right here, and right here. Now, when we draw the vertical lines, we're going to count how many times the line goes through the graph. So for the first answer choice, notice that the line goes through the graph only once. So the first one is going to pass the vertical line test. So it actually is a function. If we look at the second answer choice, the line only goes through the graph once. So this one is a function. If we look at answer choice D, this one is going to go through the graph only once. So it is a function. But then when we look at answer choice C, notice that the vertical line goes through the graph twice. So this one is not a function. So that's going to be your answer choice C. So we're counting how many times the vertical line actually passes through the graph. And if it only passes once, it passes the vertical line test, so it is a function. But if it passes more than once, that's a good sign that it's actually not a function. Okay? So that is the first 7 questions. You're trying to determine whether or not a relation is a function. Okay, so let's look at the next few questions. We're going to be looking at several charts. We're going to be identifying domain and range, and we're going to be seeing whether or not it's a function. So let's look at number 8. Let's look at number 8. Number 9, number 9. We're going to be finding domain and range. Domain and range. And we're going to be asking, is it a function? Is it a function? And this is just a yes or no question. So we're going to circle yes or no. So for this function, we're given a chart. We're given a little chart over here. We have all the x values on top. So I'm going to put all the x values on top. And we have all the y values on the bottom. So we're going to put all the y values on the bottom. Okay, so the x values are going to be 4, 3, 4, 6. And the y values are going to be 6, -1, 2, and 6. So here we're given a table. Some people call it a chart. We're given the x values on top and the y values on the bottom. And what we want to find is we want to find the domain, we want to find the range, but we also want to determine whether or not it's a function. So let's do the domain first. If you remember, domain is going to be the set of all x values, the set of all x values. So in my set that I write, I'm going to put all the x values within the domain, which is 4, 3, and 6. 4, 3, and 6. The 4 actually repeats itself, so we're only going to write it once. And now we're going to figure out what the range is. We're going to put all the y values in the range because the range is going to stand for all the y values. So we have a -1, we have a 2, and we have a 6. And the 6 actually repeats itself. So we're only going to write the 6 once because it repeats itself. Okay? So that is the domain, all the x values that we have, and the range is all the y values. So I put all those numbers in the same set. And then the last question that it asks us is it a function or not? And explain why it is a function or why it's not a function. Well, if you remember, the marker of whether or not something is a function is seeing whether or not the x values repeat themselves. And inside the chart, I see that the 4 is going to repeat itself. So this is not a function. It's definitely not a function because the x values repeat themselves. The x values repeat themselves. So x value 4 repeats. Okay? And what that basically means is we have an input with 2 outputs. 4 is being mapped to 2 down here, but 4 is also being mapped to 6. So if we were to write this as a mapping, we would see that 4 is being mapped to 2 and 6 at the same time. We know that an input can only have 1 output. So that's why this is not a function. Thank you so much, Lori.
Well,
all right.
all I got for you.
So that is number 9. And all the questions from 9 to 15 are going to be like that. Okay. Now let's look at the last type of question that you're going to see. And I think we covered this on a previous lecture. We're going to talk about function values. That's the last question on the test. So let's go ahead and look at slide number 3. Okay. So let's do function values. This will be just a little review. Now for function values, it's going to give you 4 different functions. It gives you f of x equals 3x minus 4, 3x minus 4. When you graph that, you're going to get a line. It gives you g of x is 2x squared plus 5. When you graph that, you're going to get a U shape, also known as a parabola, right? We're given h of x is 8 minus 3x. That's also going to graph a line once you graph it. And we have p of x equals x squared minus 2x, which will turn out to be a parabola when you graph it. Okay? But you don't really need to know that for now. You just need to know the 4 functions that they give you. Okay? And then they're going to ask questions like, what happens when the input is x? What is y? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do number 16. We're going to find f of -3. And then we're going to do number 17 together. We're going to find g of -1. We're going to do 18 together, which is p of 5. And then we'll do one for h. We'll do number 23, h of 4. Okay. So let me write my equal signs for all of these, and we'll get to it. Okay, for number 16, we're given f of -3. So what that means is we're going to be looking at function f, which is 3x minus 4. We're going to write out the 3x minus 4. But instead of an x, we're going to put in whatever number that they give us. And they give us -3 as the input. Remember that the input, also known as the independent variable or the x value, we put that in for x, and then we do order of operations until we get to our y value, also known as the output. So coach, can you do 3 times -3? What happens when we do that?
It'll be a -9.
A -9, that's right. But I still have this -4 on the outside. So coach, when you have -9 minus 4, what does that give you?
Same sign put together, stay the same sign. So you just add the number 9 plus 4 gives you 13 and keep the same sign, -13.
Negative 13. That's right. Awesome. So that's going to be our first answer. So all we're doing is we're keeping the function the same. We're just replacing x with whatever number they tell us to replace it with. Okay? Let's look at number 17. 17, we're doing g of x, and we're letting x be -1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep everything the same with the function. I'm going to have 2 times something squared plus 5. And right here in parentheses, it tells me to put in -1, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay? So what are we going to do first, Coach?
We're going to do the exponents first.
Right.
So -1 times a -1 gives you a +1.
That's right. So I'm going to square -1 to get +1. And then I'll just go from there. Okay. Now we're going to do multiplication. So what's 2 times 1 going to be?
It's going to be 2.
Right. 2.
And then 2 plus 5 gives you 7.
Yes, that's going to give you 7. And we're done with that one. So once you get to a number, you're done. All right. Now let's do number 18, p of 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the function p of x from the left side, the right side, over here. I have x squared minus 2x. So I'm going to keep everything the same, but I'm going to replace every single x with a 5. Okay, so I have 5 squared. That's the same thing as doing 5 times 5, and that's going to give us 25. I also have 2 times 5 over here. We're going to do that next. Coach, what's 2 times 5?
Give you 10.
Right. And then 25 minus 10 is going to give me 15. And I'm done. So that's number 18. Okay. And the last one we're going to do today is 23. We're going to find h of 4. So we're going to take the function h of x, which is 8 minus 3x, 8 minus 3x, but we're going to replace x with a 4. So the first thing I see is I see subtraction, but I know I also have multiplication, which is 3 times 4. So I'm going to do that first. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 4 is 12. And now I have 8 minus 12, which is subtraction. And we all know that 8 minus 12 is going to give us a -4. And I'm done. So that's function values. That's going to be the last 9 questions on your test. So that's pretty much all I have to talk about today. The test is going to be due on Sunday. Go ahead and get to it. If you have any questions, let me know now or send me an email later. And on the next slide, we'll talk about what's going to be due on Sunday. Okay, so you got 2 assignments. You got your function values classwork. We did that on the last lecture. And then the second thing we got is the function test, right, Coach?
Yes.
Definitely. Okay, so we did this on Monday, and you can do the function test today, which is Wednesday. All right, class dismissed. I will see everybody next week on Monday. Have a great weekend. And if you have any questions on your classwork or your test, send me an email or let me know after today's lecture. Okay? Have a very mathematical day.